All right. Well, just like that, we're online. How do you all do this afternoon, huh? I'm Bob Walker, and we are having our little chat here to remember Momus Alexander Morgus, aka Sid Noel, who passed away yesterday. And we have two great uh, uh, guests with us today. We have Matt Borel, who was Wiley Fey on the Morgus Presents show. And we have Nathan Ales, who his family was uh, very close to Sid Noel. So if you just give me a second here and let me bring it up on my Facebook page, and then we're going to let the guests in. Oh my lord. Okay, all right. Rainy weather. Okay, so yep, here we go now. All right, everything is set, and welcome to our broadcast. May I introduce to you, first of all, our guest, Matthew Borel. Matt Borel, who was a regular on Morgus Presents as Wiley Fey. How you doing, Matt?
Good evening, Bob. Thank you so much for asking me to come on.
Oh,
This is
thank
quite
you
a
for
setup we
coming.
have.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. And our other guest here is Nathan Ailes, who is an alumnus of WQUE FM when it was what was it, 94.3, I think.
93.3.
93.3. Okay.
There you go.
So yeah, and his family knew Sid Noel very well. So I'm sure we have some stories in here tonight to tell people, and that's what we intend to do. So let me give a little background for some of you who may not remember how it all came about. Dawn Busters was a show on WWL 870 in the late 40s and into the 50s, and there was a guy on there called Sid Noel, and that was our Sid Noel. He was one of the hosts and one of the comedians and everything. He did little skits and things like that. The Dawn Busters were about oh god, 20 or 25 people with Pete Fountain and Al Hurt and uh, Henry Dupre and Margie O'Dare and a whole bunch of them. They were all crowded in this one room, and they would all do skits and singing and music and everything. All this before the sun got up every morning. So it was a very, very popular show. And then come around 1954, Sid Noel left the Dawn Busters and he went over to WSMB 1350, where he was actually a disc jockey playing all those rock and roll hits from Frank Sinatra and Nat King Cole. You know, oh boy, he was rocking along. And then later on in the 50s, he went over to WWL 870 and he did the morning show. And while he was there, they put out a casting call for um, the Morgus show. I don't know if it was named Morgus at the time, but WWL wanted to do a horror movie show on Saturday night because Universal International had just released their package of black and white horror movies. And so they had the competition and everything. They wound down to about two people. One of them was Sid Noel, and he told me himself that the other one was one of the boy Hollywood stars who came in just for the audition. And he said he couldn't remember if it was from the Our Gang or the Little Rascals or one of those, but he said the guy was drunk. So when he came in, they threw him out, and so Sid got the job. So there you go, and it premiered
Great
on
story.
January 3rd. What's that?
I said that's a great story. That's a great story.
Yeah, he told it many times. January 3rd, 1959 was the first night that it was on at 10:30 at night on WWL TV, and then his first month was Frankenstein. That was his first movie with Boris Karloff, and then Dracula the next week, and then Werewolf of London, and then The Invisible Man, and it was originally called The House of Shock. And one other thing that Eric was actually an old skull that he got from a friend of his who worked in the morgue in the autopsy room at Charity Hospital. And they happened to have this old skull around. It was about 200 years old. It was ugly as hell, man. But anyway, he took it, and the original Eric just scared the people so bad they had to change him out and put in a plastic skull for a while. So anyway, you guys, what are your first memories of Morgus and Sid Noel?
Go ahead, Matt. You were the AKA agent, so let's hear your side.
Well, the folks that put the show together with Sid, Paul Yasich and his family, they did the whole show that when this was the newer ones, around 86. Does that sound right? 86 or so. And I had done a couple of plays with her, and she said, hey, listen, why don't you come in and audition? We're bringing Morgus back. And this was a huge deal for me because my dad knew Hap Glaudy, and on Thursday when they used to tape the shows down at Channel 4, my brother and I got dropped off down there, and somehow or another Hap Glaudy snuck us into the studio. So we watched those being taped. And so my brother and I went back to my dad's garage, my parents' garage, and we put up a set. And we did these silent 8mm Morgus shows, right? And I was crazy about it. So to get this call to audition for Sid, and we came in, it was nice, and I can't remember what we did, but I know that there wasn't any lines or anything, maybe. And he told me that he had actually known someone named Wiley Fey. And then the guy was sort of like more or less a con man, and so he may have been a weatherman also. Because I think, wasn't there a time when Sid went up north somewhere?
Detroit.
Yep.
Detroit. Okay, right. It was in Detroit that he met this guy. So I came in, and Deidre called me and said, yeah, if you want it, we start so and so. So I came in. I can't remember how many I did. I always think it was more than it in reality was, but we would start sometimes he'd come over to my apartment with an outline and he'd talk about the show, and then that Sid was the Sid that you saw on the stage at the Orpheum. Very professorial, very Ivy League dressed guy, tall. I'm 5'6", and he's a tall guy. And so he'd come over and we'd go over the show, and then we'd start maybe about 7 o'clock on a Friday night, and no end in sight, zero end in sight. It would be until he felt that he got the last bit, done. And so they're pretty interesting. And then I remember that there weren't any snacks. That was one thing that I always thought was bad, because we'd stayed all hours of the night, and maybe there was coffee, but I don't think so. And when it got to be at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, there was a bar right across on Charter Street down in the corner. And I'd run in there and have a couple of quick vodka and sodas and come back to shoot. I was in so much better a mood to come back and shoot whatever that we had to do next,
Mm-hmm.
But it was long and arduous. The first couple I did with Tommy George, and then he passed away. And so in the latter ones that I did, there was another gentleman who played Chopstick. I don't know if you know that or remember that.
Yeah, they interviewed in the 80s for after the other Chopsley passed away. I think it was around 86, 87, and they started an interview process. And he was the final word, and you had to be very tall, or he just sent you right back out the room.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, because he was. I don't know how tall Sid was, but he was tall. He may have been over 6 feet. So whoever that guy was had to be really big. I remember Tommy's being a very sweet guy, very quiet guy. But you know, real sweet. And I think he was in some physical pain because I don't think that he could stand very long at that point. It seemed to me he was. So he'd be in the back, sort of like with his legs up in between shots and stuff. Yeah, I can imagine that guy had to have been tough. But Nathan, how did you meet him? You said your family is
actually, we didn't get to know each other very well till personally, till his later years in life. And but I met Sid. So first of all, let me say this about Bob Walker, because before we get started, I got to tell you,
here.
Bob Walker was he was my idol when I was a kid. You know, a lot of kids, you know, when you say, what do you want to be when you grow up? They'd say, I want to be a policeman. I want to be a fireman. When I was 8, 9, 10 years old, all I did was listen to WTIX AM. And when somebody said, what do you want to be when you grow up? I'd say, I want to be Bob Walker. I want to be Skinny Tommy Chaney. I want to be on the radio. And people go, what are you, nuts?
Me too.
So,
we had the same life.
Not only
Me too.
Not only did I get to live my dream, I got to live my dream and work in the same radio station with the guys that I idolized as a child, and that was Skinny and Bob.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah.
Skinny's probably listening.
So I'm working in the radio station. So I'm not working on the air. I'm a sales guy. Well, the GM, his name's Bill Steffes. We're still very good friends. He was the one that brought Walton and Johnson to New Orleans.
Okay, yeah.
Walton and Johnson left New Orleans. Bill says, and I was doing voices in their show. He goes, I want you to do the morning show. I'm like, I'm a sales guy. He goes, no, I want you to, I think you can do it. And so he put me on the air. He hired a guy to be my partner, and I started working on the air. So one day they said, look, Morgus is coming up and for the morning show, because he was promoting something and he wants to be on the air, and so we're gonna have him. So that was my first meeting with Morgus. From that point, that's when I started. So this was around 86, 87. So he says, I want you to come be, he goes, you're a likable guy. Come, I want you to be on the show. So I did 3 Morgus shows in the 80s. He hooked up, you know, the way when you're gonna charge your car battery, what do you call those?
Jump cables.
Jump cable.
Yeah.
He had a liver on a table. He had a liver on a table, and he had jumper cables connected to this piece of liver. And then it turned into me. Next thing you know, instead of a liver, so I came to life from a liver with some jumper cable. Last time I saw him before he passed, I said, look, it's just the opposite now. You need to get me a new liver.
That's right.
So anyway, so that was the first show I did. The second one, it was Rhonda Shear and me. And Rhonda, who I've known since we were young.
She's great.
Rhonda was. This is the greatest premise ever. I got to tell you, this is the funniest stuff. You can't. Only Sid Noel could come up with this crazy stuff. So, so that 80s was when we started using the space shuttles, right? So his premise for this show was he had a faux space capsule built, and it was on the roof of whatever building we were at. I can't remember exactly where it was. And it was a faux space. I'm talking a 15-foot capsule that looked like what would land in the ocean from an Apollo mission, right? And on the top was a big eye. So like a big eye was connected to it with a cable connected to the eye. And so the cable ran away. You couldn't see where the cable ended. So the premise was he was going to be the first person on Mars, because what was going to happen is the space shuttle was going to take off, and he had the cable connected to the real space shuttle. When it tightened up, it would catapult him past the space shuttle. And so instead of the space shuttle landing on Mars, he was going to be the first man on Mars with Rhonda Shear. And I was a news reporter asking him questions. And you know what's funny about Sid? Matt, I don't know if you experienced this. He ad-libbed everything.
Yeah.
So I would wait on a cue for him to say such and such, which was going to be his last words before I would speak.
Right. Yeah.
And he changed it. And so I just stood there looking. I'll never forget. I stood there looking at him one time, and I just was looking at him with a stupid look on my face. And he's looking at me, and I'm not saying anything, and I'm supposed to be talking, right? But the cue was all off because he changed his line.
Yeah.
He says, "Cut." And then he gets right in my face. He goes, "You stupid SOB. What are you waiting on?" And he's like yelling at me. And I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, this is the man at 6 years old I was scared to death of, and now he's scaring me again.
Yeah.
I
know exactly what that face
and then after it was all said and done, he was just back to being Sid,
Oh, sure.
But he was intense.
That was the thing. You couldn't step on his line, and even during a rehearsal, of course, because the show revolved around him, but you couldn't step on a line or a premise. But I think he was fairly happy about what I did. I just learned to stay out of his way when they were, only because I just wanted the take to end and we go forward.
I know.
That wasn't possible.
But Matt, you were great.
The one time that I was on Morgus's show was for the DIY clinic, do it yourself. And he was, teaching everybody how to operate on themselves. So my job was to just come in there, and he told me, I'm going to do acupuncture on you. So, and that's all you do, you go, like it hurts. So I was enjoying myself. I went and knocked on the door.
I lost Nathan's audio.
I'm still here.
He ain't saying nothing.
Bob, can you hear me?
Yeah. I can hear you.
I'm here, Matt.
His audio seems garbage to me.
Your audio dropped, Matt?
I'm having some audio trouble. Anybody else?
Bob, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you both.
Okay.
And
Okay, you can hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I lost what Nathan said.
Yeah. Whoops.
Well, I think we lost Matt.
Out. Uh-oh.
I think we lost Matt.
I'm telling you, it's probably the weather.
Yeah.
Either that or Morgus's
Morgus's spirits there.
Yeah.
So
all right, there's Matt. There you go.
There he is.
All right, can you hear us now?
Yes, I can. That just knocked me off, whatever it was. But I'm back. Okay. I'm sorry.
So anyway, I go outside of his door and I knock on it. And Morgus opens it up, and I say, "Morgus, my arm hurts." He says, "Come over here. Let me do some acupuncture." And of course, they changed the scene, and he put a big piece of foam under my arm, and here he comes with these big sewing needles, and dunk, 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 dunk. And he told me to be uncomfortable and to make some noise. So I started going, ah, ah, ah. And I could see he was getting uncomfortable. And then I said, "Oh, man, it feels good." So I scooted out the door, and they cut it. And he said, "God damn it, man, what are you doing? You're making all that noise. I didn't want you to go that loud." And oh, man, I was blown away by that. 4 o'clock in the morning, I didn't have to hear that,
Yeah. He was intense.
Yeah, and I was talking to one of the engineers at Channel 6, and, he was just shaking his head when I came out of that scene, and I came over to him, and the engineer said, Sid is a prince, but Morgus is a real bastard.
I've had that trouble exactly, but it was luckily for me. It was near the end, and so I got mad one night. I got mad at something that he said to me one night, and by that time I really didn't have anything to lose. I mean, we were 3/4 of a way through the show, so I mean, I didn't throw any type of tantrum, but I let him know that we didn't exactly see eye to eye on that particular matter, whatever it was. And it was probably something stupid because other than that, he was such a gracious guy, man. I mean, he really was. I mean, like I said, I didn't know him personally, but he also around women, he was very courtly. I don't know if you noticed that, but whenever Mrs. Fetish, oh boy, Janet Shea, who played Mrs. Fetish, she's terrific. And whenever Janet was on the set, he wouldn't cuss. He wouldn't say anything bad. And anytime any other women were on the set, he was very courtly, very, very nice and approachable. And not so much with us,
Yeah, well, he was like two different people. When he was Morgus, he was Morgus. He wasn't Sid Noel anymore.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
You had to watch what you say around him and what you do around him. And as soon as he took the makeup off, the nicest guy in the world.
I think I used to run away from Channel 6 when we wrapped. I don't think I hung around till he took his makeup off. And then we would exchange pleasantries. But, he always had in mind, that he was paying for everything. So that's why he didn't like, he liked a flow of the work too. But, then on the other hand, we didn't call him Sidney Redu for nothing, because that was I don't know if you ever heard that, but, like you said, if you saw him on the street or if you greet him, he's a very nice, approachable fellow.
And he didn't want to be identified as Morgus either. No, when he was out of costume.
He was protective of that, yeah.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah. You notice that in the shows that we did in the 80s, he tried to tone himself, Morgus, down a little bit. He started wearing a shirt and tie, however dirty, and he toned down the facial makeup. His hair was a little more combed and stuff. For what reason, I don't know. I think he felt that the character was just a little bit horrific for those tastes in the 80s, if that makes any sense or not. I'm not sure that makes any sense.
I have a story about him, and he told me this. When he was in Detroit in 1964 and part of 1965, he decided he was going to do a weather show, just like he did here. So he's on the station in Detroit, and out of his own pocket, he paid the production costs, and he had a year's worth of wraparounds of a weather program.
Okay.
So a year's worth, and he paid for them all. And then when he, when he got ready to use them and brought them to the station, they said, Sid, we're going to be all in color now. And he had produced them all in black and white. So he couldn't use them.
Oh, wow.
He lost a bundle on there. He lost on the series that he did in 1986 and 87. Morgus Presents.
I had heard that. We started to say, "Oh, the boys from Chicago must have called." They were talking about where their money was. Oh, that was just a joke.
Oh,
Gallows.
The man is. He will live. He passed, but his memory will live generation after generation. Yeah. Because everybody, I'm 63 now. My son's 30. He knows who Morgus is.
Mm-hmm.
He will tell his kids who Morgus was. He will transcend time. His talent, his efforts, his expertise in putting together the genre of show that he did will always be remembered. Always.
I think so too. I mean, it was really exciting to see that when in the 80s he couldn't really do the wraparounds that successfully. Everyone says the same thing. Oh, when the older shows were Well, oh, they would mention the mayor of New Orleans, or because I remember he was talking on the phone in the 80s to the president. He couldn't say the president's name because he wanted the shows to be, vital.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Timeless. And I remember that took a little bit away, but I think that you tuned in to see him. It would be nice if he could refer to the movies like the old days, but he made it work, whatever it was. It was an undertaking. No question about it.
I got a question for both of you guys.
Mm-hmm.
All right? So, Bob, I know you're at least a year older than me.
Yeah, at least.
So, what is the first? All right, so I can tell you, me and the little girls down the street on North Upland in Metairie, they would come over on Saturday night, and we would get under the covers and put the cover over our head, and then and so we'd look at Morgus, but we had the covers ready to cover our head. What's the first? You never remember, those were all B movies, right? Except for Dracula and the Wolfman. When it got to be in the 60s, he had some B movies. What's the first movie you remember watching Morgus Presents?
Oh, Frankenstein. And that was the house. Remember, it was the House of Shock until 1964, and then it became Morgus Presents after he came back from Detroit.
Right.
And apparently, from what I could find out, when he came back from Detroit, he went back to Channel 4, and he used Morgus Presents on that, but that only lasted a few months, and then he was off of TV for about 20 years.
So what's the first movie you saw him present on his show? Can you remember? Because I remember the first movie I ever saw.
Yeah, Frankenstein. That was the first one he ever offered.
Okay,
so for me it was the Wolfman, and I think on that particular show that he had the Wolfman on, I believe somehow or another I remember him becoming a Wolfman. I might be mixing up two different episodes, earlier and later, but that was the first one for me, the Wolfman.
So
let me ask you all this. Oh, okay, go ahead.
Mine was I think I was about 6, 7-ish, like 1964.
Mm-hmm.
And it was called Reptilicus. All right.
Oh yeah.
So they were drilling into the earth, and when they drilled into the earth, for whatever reason they were drilling, when they pulled the drill bit out, the drill bit was huge. They pulled the drill. There was a piece of meat on it with a little blood, and
was it a liver?
No, it wasn't a liver. That was me. So they took this piece of meat to their laboratory, and then this piece of meat that came out of the ground became a giant lizard that just raised hell all over the place.
I remember that movie. That was a cheapie from Denmark, and you watch the whole movie and you never see the thing's whole body. All you see is this head with two little arms, going through the scene, but you never saw the whole body.
Two little arms. That reminds me of people I go to lunch with sometimes. They got two little arms. They can't get into their pocket.
Let me ask y'all this. Do either of y'all remember Granny Morgus?
No.
Oh, come on. I baffled you both?
Yeah.
Morgus was such a hit back in later 1959, because he had premiered January 3rd, and as the year went along, Mardi Gras and everything, I mean, he was a rock star. There are pictures online on Facebook of him in the parades in his old car, and the crowds are all crazy about him. Well, anyway, as the year went on, he did a 45 record, the Morgus Experiment, where everything blows up in his face on the end. I'd like to play it, but some other time. But toward the end of that year, he was so popular that when his show ended at 12:30 at night, Sunday morning actually, they would really show B and C movies with Granny Morgus, and it would be him. And he was made up just like the old lady at the end of Psycho. with Anthony
Yeah,
Perkins,
yeah,
you know, the first one with the gray wig and the bun in the back and everything, and in a rocking chair, and he would sit there and, yeah, good to have you all here, you know, and he would introduce the movies. It didn't last long because the movies were horrible to stay up 2 hours for at the time of the night. But Granny,
Boy, I never knew that.
she was an actual person, Granny Morgus, for about 6 months.
That's hilarious.
Well, trivia for you, and a couple of things here too. Who remembers the Louisiana Mystery Man when he visited Morgus? Morgus used this same scenario in The Wacky World of Dr. Morgus, the movie he did with the people machine.
Oh yeah.
Well, he on the first time he did the people machine on the House of Shock, he had this 55 gallon drums, you know, that he made into a people machine, and he'd just put them in. I think Maya Skiro went in there, and a couple of other people. They always
lost your audio again.
Oh, you did. Hello.
Uh-oh.
Oh, let's turn it off and turn it back on again.
It's precious hair time. Let's see. How is everybody?
Okay, we're doing okay.
Matt looks frozen. Oh, there you go.
Yeah. All right. I can't finish my story. But here he comes. There he is. There he is. Can you hear us now? Can you hear us now?
I can hear you. I'm not sure I can hear Nathan, though. Nathan, yeah.
He ain't saying nothing. So anyway, the Louisiana Mystery Man was a big thing about that time. If you went in the grocery store and you were shopping and the Louisiana Mystery Man would drop in, he would give you free Louisiana coffee. And one night, Louisiana Mystery Man came into Morgus's laboratory, and Morgus stopped what he was doing and just looked at him and conked him on the head with something and put him into the barrel. And of course, everybody came out on the other side as sand, just in the movie.
Well, you know, my grandmother used to live over in Gretna, and I remember how excited my brother and I were that we saw the old city ice house. You could see it right from the expressway going up to the bridge. And I don't know if that building is still there, but it was there for many, 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 many years. And I imagine that that's where his laboratory was, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And we tried to reenact that in my parents' garage too. We tried to get the skylight in the window, you know, and the lights coming through it and stuff.
Yeah,
we were freaks, all right, man. There's no question about it. We were freaks.
Nathan, what episode were you on?
I was on three in the 80s. The one was, you know, one where I was a TV reporter, one I was a liver, and the third one I was in a crowd of people. I think that was the first one I ever did with him. He put me in a crowd of people. He didn't want me talking until he trusted me. And then once he got to know me and he felt like he could trust me, then I got speaking parts.
Well, let me ask you this, Nathan. Did they wire you up with a mic there at Channel 6?
No.
You know, they didn't have enough. They didn't. Oh, okay. They didn't use the boom. What I would have to do is give my mic back to somebody else, and because I was so short, I was able to speak right into Sid's mic if we had a piece of dialogue, you know, together.
No, they had a boom over me every time I did it. They didn't mic me up because I think the reason you were one-on-one with him, I was usually in a crowd, or except for the time I was a liver, I was by myself. But other than that, I was in a crowd usually, and they just boomed everybody so you could hear everybody.
Yeah, that crazy episode I was in, the DIY clinic. I just had a small part. I wasn't even involved with the main plot. because Wayne Mack was in there. And you talk about two people when they turned off the camera. These guys would be rolling on the floor laughing at the jokes they had told on the camera and everything. And whoops, Matt's gone again. But anyway, come on, Matt. Come on. Come on, come on. There you is. There you are. Hello, Matt. Oh, Matt's frozen.
No, he's there. He's there. Matt, you keep disappearing on.
I am sorry. They keep knocking me off. I beg your pardon.
Okay, can you hear us now? Now? Can you hear us?
They're frozen.
Yeah.
Here comes Bob.
Yeah.
Are we
Can
back?
you hear me now? Yeah, you're back. Mm-hmm. Can you hear it?
Yeah.
Hey, Bob, when you were on the radio, was there an advertiser? I remember one of Morgus's early, in the mid 60s, early 60s, one of the advertisers on the Morgus show, and I'm sure they advertised on radio too, I would imagine. The name of it was a pizza place called The World's Worst Pizza. That was the name of it. The World's Worst Pizza, and they were a sponsor of the Morgus show.
I remember the.
You remember them at all?
I remember that slogan. I don't remember what the name of the pizza place was.
That was the name of it. The World's Worst Pizza. If you ordered pizza from them, it's on the top of the box. It said The World's Worst Pizza. And that was a Morgus sponsor.
Oh. But anyway, what I was saying before, maybe Matt can hear now, is at the end of that episode with Wayne Mack and Sid Noel, and they were just rolling on the floor, joking with each other and everything. Of course, Morgus's experiment went awry, and at the end, all of his patients that he was teaching to do it yourself, they all turned into roaches. And they were all, Wayne Mack included, they were all laying on their backs with their arms and legs up in the air, wiggling them, and that was the end of it. That was
only Sid could pull that off, man.
I don't know where he pulled this stuff out of his brain, but he did it week in and week out, and he came up with the crazy.
Sure did.
He had quite a brain.
He came up with a lot of scenarios too. That must be been a difficult thing for him to do every week. Do
y'all remember when it was, by any chance, when the House of Shock was on? I guess about 63 or so. This particular thing, he had the movie called The Snow Creature, and he had a dummy that it was his snow creature and whatever, and his experiment with his snow creature went awry again. And what he did is he told everybody, okay, I'm going to be throwing this off of the top of the TV studio at 12:30, so y'all come down. And I begged my mother to take me, but she told me I was crazy. But they showed pictures of it afterwards, and Rampart Street was loaded with people at 12:30 at night. And on top of the WWL studios, you could see Morgus, hunched over and going around. Chopsley was up there, and Chopsley beat up the doll and threw it off down into the street. And that was the end of the show that night. And that was to do something like that at 12:30 at night and get people to come out and just watch him throw a dummy off the roof.
The last episode I did for him, we were both arrested, and as our sentence, we had to clean up the central business district. So he had a camera crew out there, and he and I had push brooms all up and down Chapachula Street, right there in that warehouse district here. I think that was the last one. Does anybody know the true story about the falling out he had with Channel 4 over the Pontchartrain Beach? Does that sound familiar to you guys?
No, not at all.
No.
I think he called Mr. Early's bluff. But there was some sort of disagreement about an appearance by Morgus at Pontchartrain Beach, and that was it. He wasn't on WWL anymore.
Wow.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
You know, when's the last time have you guys seen him recently or no?
Well, Bob saw him at the Orpheum in
Right.
October, I believe. I haven't seen him. We had sort of a falling out, and he never talked to me. He wanted me to do some more shows, and I had been approached to do the kids show on Channel 4, and it was like a longer gig, and it was going to be some other things, which never happened, of course. But when we came to a stalemate, he just hung up on me, and I never heard from him again. You know, I never heard from him again, which is unfortunate. And so it had been a long time since I'd seen him. Then I saw the picture of the Orpheum performance, you know, and he looked terrific. I mean, he looked terrific.
Yeah, I got to tell you something, guys. And Bob was there. For a man who was 90 years old to carry himself the way he carried himself, to present himself, to have the brain power at that age that he had to do that show. I mean, a one-man show by himself.
Yeah.
Just you know, talking about his whole experience from radio to Morgus to today, I just found it flat out amazing. I really did.
It really was amazing.
I was floored, and
He spoke for 45 minutes, all ad lib.
Yeah.
Wow.
He was amazing, and
I really wish I really wish I'd seen it now. But
it was awesome. It really was. So I don't know if do you guys know? I know Bob. Mike Zients. He owns a company called Airlift Productions.
Yeah, Mike McCall.
McCann? Yeah, Mike McCann.
McCann, yeah.
So Mike was Mike and him were pretty close, and you know, Mike called me and he said, "Look, we need your help. This, you know, he doesn't want to take a dime out of this. Everything's going to, I think it was autism. Was it autism, Bob? His charity was it autistic children? I think it was. But he did the show completely for a charity, and so, you know, I've been in advertising and marketing my whole life, and seems like, and so they said, "Can you help us?" And I said, "This is a piece of cake. I mean, we'll pack just say Morgus, and the place is gonna get packed. You know, anybody who's between the ages of 50 to dead, you're gonna go see Morgus."
Yeah.
And so I put together, and I got him a lot of PR, a lot of press, and I got him in a lot of places to make sure that we packed that place. And Bob, was that place packed or what?
It was packed, and I mean the tickets were like $60, as I recall.
Yeah, they're expensive.
And he, you know, he made it known that he wanted the entire place to be filled up, and it was. And no, his cause for that was Alzheimer's.
Yeah. Oh, it was Alzheimer's.
Okay.
Yeah.
So so as things work out, as we get older, so my 89, about to be 90-year-old father lives with me, and he had never met Sid. And Sid lived over here. I live in Mandeville. Sid lived in Covington. So he was a huge LSU fan. So last year when LSU played Texas, I called him. I said, and prior, not a year, but probably 6 months prior to that September game, my mom passed. So my dad's here with me, and he's, you know, without my mom. So it was kind of funny because I joked about it with my friends. I said, I'm getting my dad a play date with Morgus. So I called and said, he's like, I would love. So I just finished my outdoor patio and outdoor kitchen, and I was cooking. And so Mike McCann picked him up at the center where he was living and brought him over. And I put the pictures on Facebook. I put it on Facebook, him and my dad. My dad was so thrilled to meet Morgus, you know. You know, I mean, he's, like I said, he's an icon. And you know, he's probably more of an icon to me than my dad because it was during my youth, you know. But they talked like they had been friends for a million years. And throughout the past year, until COVID, that, you know, he came over and spent time with him.
And I bet it does them, your dad and Sid, good things happen to them to be able to talk to each other so warmly, you know, at that advanced age. It's great, you know.
It was pretty cool. I gotta say, it was pretty cool to just be a part of that and to see my dad and him like they've been buddies for forever. And thank God my dad also still has all of his faculties. He moves around slow but sure, you know. And so the two of them together were able to hold incredible conversation. I just hope I can speak like they did at 90 when I'm 90. I'll probably be a babbling idiot.
I'm there already, Nathan. I mean, I'm
you know, it was just neat to watch that, and I cherish it. I really do.
Well, what made the watching the game even better is that LSU won.
Oh yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And Sid was a huge LSU fan. Don't kid you. He loved LSU, and he loved the fact that I had enough TVs he could go in any room and watch it, including the bathroom.
Oh, by the way, Nathan, we got a message here from Rusty Gale. You know Rusty, don't you?
Rusty Gale, my one of my favorite clients ever. He used to be He said the world's worst pizza was Mr. Pizza Red Kagan. That rings a bell.
I remember.
And you see, Rusty would know that because he's an ad man from way back. Rusty was he worked for Backer, Spielvogel, and Bates, which was out of New York, but he was the local head of Backer here, and they were the ad agency for Miller Beer. And I was in sales, and it was my accountant. So Rusty and I had he's one of those guys I used to take to lunch. I hope he's watching. You know, you took him to lunch and he had like the dinosaur hand. Rusty, he's got this tab. I got it, Rusty. Don't worry about it. No, I'm just kidding. Rusty was always good. Rusty was a big part of my income. Thank you, brother.
Yeah. He's listening. He posted on our Facebook page. Well, look, guys, it's been fun. Hope y'all had a good time. I really thank you all for
It's so nice to meet you, Nathan, and those stories about your dad. Your stories about your dad and Sid were great, you know. You guys take care, man.
All these years, I have never crossed paths with Wiley Fey. And here it happened.
You live and tell about it. All right, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Matt.
Take care.
Thank you,
guys.
Nathan.
Have a great night.
You too. Have a great weekend.
Roll them hits, baby.
See y'all later. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.